The station hung in silence among the stars, a silver crescent of metal and glass floating above the jagged surface of Calith 9. It was a research outpost, a hub of science and diplomacy, but today it held something more tense, an uneasy anticipation. Commander Elias Kane stood at the observation deck, his gaze scanning the alien planet below. Even from this distance, he could feel the subtle movements of the station's personnel, the flicker of nervous energy that humans and aliens alike could not fully hide. Elias was not like the others. He had been trained for situations like this, not just combat, but negotiation, anticipation, and prediction. Humans had always thrived on adaptability, and Elias exemplified that. He could read patterns, foresee danger, and understand behavior in a way that few species could. Today, that skill would be tested more than ever. A briefing had come hours ago. Intelligence reports suggested that Lyra, a highly skilled operative from the Andari Collective, had been dispatched to the station. Lyra was known for stealth, precision, and cunning. She moved without sound, and her presence was often detected only after it was too late. But Elias had anticipated her arrival. He did not know exactly how she would approach, but he could predict the method, the timing, and even the subtle rhythms of her movements. The station's corridors were empty as he moved through them, footsteps echoing softly against the metal floors. Lights flickered above, casting elongated shadows that shifted with every movement. Elias sensed the faintest changes in the air pressure, a ripple in the circulation of the station's climate systems. Each of these tiny details painted a picture in his mind, a pattern that would lead him to Lyra before she could reach him. Meanwhile, Lyra navigated the station with careful precision. She adjusted the grip on her wrist-mounted device, a tool that could disable locks, read security codes, and even manipulate electronic sensors. Every corridor, every vent, every doorway was a potential path or a trap. She knew the reputation of the human commander who waited somewhere in this labyrinth. His mind was said to be exceptional, almost preternatural in its foresight, but she had faced challenges before. She moved silently, her eyes scanning, her senses attuned to every vibration. As she approached the central atrium, Lyra noticed subtle changes in the environment. The temperature had shifted slightly, the airflow was different near the vents. She paused, calculating the odds, aware that each second brought her closer to her target, and closer to potential detection. She could feel the tension in the station as if it were a living entity, the energy of humans and aliens alike converging in this single point. Elias had already moved into position. He was not hiding, he was blending. The observation deck offered a vantage point, but he had chosen the shadows near the atrium entrance, where the light fractured across the metal walls. He watched Lyra's movements carefully. Her approach was deliberate, measured. He had predicted her steps, the timing of her pauses, the angles she would favor. All he had to do was wait for the moment she committed to her next move. Lyra's hand brushed a control panel, her fingers nimble and precise. The panel glowed briefly, then reset. She knew she had been slightly anticipated. Someone here understood her methods, someone human. Elias's mind was already several steps ahead. Humans had a gift for prediction, for adaptation. Even against a species like the Andari, who prized instinct and training, humans could hold their ground, not by brute strength, but by insight. She advanced, crouching slightly, careful not to create shadows that might betray her position. Elias noted the slight hesitation in her posture, the subtle shift of weight from one foot to the other. She had always relied on her intuition, yet here it faltered. The human before her was not simply reacting, he was anticipating. And anticipation, Elias knew, was one of humanity's greatest tools. The corridor narrowed. Lyra adjusted her path, attempting a subtle detour, but Elias had accounted for it. He had memorized the station's layout, memorized the likely paths of any intruder. His predictions were not just guesses, they were calculations based on human and alien behavior, on environmental cues, on probability. Every step she took moved her along a route he had already mapped in his mind. A soft hum echoed from the ventilation system. Lyra's ears twitched. She froze, listening. Elias had noticed her pause. In that fraction of a second, he calculated her next 3 moves. Humans could do that instinctively, a product of evolution and practice. He stepped slightly, letting a shadow fall across the floor in a way that would influence her path. He did not chase her. He did not need to. The moment she would commit to the corridor he had predicted would be enough. Lyra resumed her movement, unaware that the slight misdirection had confirmed her position. Elias's eyes narrowed. She was clever, adaptive, but the human mind had a subtle strength, the ability to see beyond immediate choices, to anticipate the anticipator. That strength had allowed humanity to survive wars, to explore the stars, to hold its own in a galaxy far larger than itself. As she approached a junction, Elias stepped into the light just enough to catch her eye. She froze, a flash of recognition crossing her face. He did not move further. He did not need to. She had been seen, yes, but not caught. The real challenge was psychological, a game of wits before any confrontation of strength or weaponry could begin. Lyra tilted her head, analyzing him, searching for weakness. Her movements became slightly less fluid, cautious, as she considered her options. Elias smiled faintly. Even the most skilled operative could be influenced by subtle shifts in confidence, by the calm that humans often carried even in the most dangerous situations. He had learned that long ago. "You've been expecting me," she said quietly, her voice barely above the hum of the station. There was no fear, only the professional curiosity of someone who recognized a worthy opponent. "I anticipated your approach," Elias replied calmly. "It wasn't difficult. You leave traces, even the best of you do. Movement patterns, environmental interaction, timing, all predictable with careful observation." Lyra studied him. "Humans are unpredictable," she said slowly. "At least that's what we were told. Yet here you are, predicting me perfectly." Elias shrugged, a simple gesture that conveyed confidence without arrogance. "We are adaptable. Observation is a skill. Prediction is a habit. Your reputation is precise, but you rely on instinct. Instinct can be observed, anticipated, and countered." She considered this, then nodded slightly. "Then you are prepared." "Prepared enough," he said. His attention, however, was already scanning the surrounding areas. Predicting Lyra's approach was only part of the challenge. The station itself held other threats, and every movement here could trigger complications. Humans thrived in uncertainty, but even so, vigilance was necessary. Lyra took a small step forward, her posture relaxed yet ready. "And if I do something completely unexpected?" she asked, her tone teasing yet serious. Elias did not answer immediately. Instead, he observed, mentally mapping every subtle shift in her stance, every micro-expression. Humans had developed the ability to read patterns in ways other species often overlooked. To the Andari, the universe was vast and chaotic. To humans, it was a puzzle, solvable through attention, adaptability, and ingenuity. "You already have," he said finally, a quiet confidence in his voice. "You can try, but I've accounted for most possibilities. That is the advantage of prediction. It is not infallible, but it is effective." A sudden alarm echoed through the station. Red lights flared, bathing the corridors in urgency. Both turned toward the sound, instincts kicking in. This was not part of their encounter. It was an external threat. Another alien faction had infiltrated the station, unknown, unpredictable. Yet Elias did not falter. His mind adjusted, recalculating. Human intelligence was not only in prediction, but in adaptation. Lyra glanced at him, a mix of respect and irritation crossing her face. "It seems the universe enjoys throwing surprises at humans," she muttered. Elias allowed himself a small smile. "And humans thrive on surprises," he said, "anticipated or not." Without another word, they moved together toward the source of the alarm. Despite being on opposing sides moments before, survival instincts aligned them. Elias led, predicting the hazards of the corridors, the likely positions of intruders. Lyra followed, silent and precise, realizing that the human beside her was unlike any opponent she had faced. Not stronger, not faster, but profoundly aware, perceptive, and adaptable. The corridor narrowed further, and a flicker of movement caught Elias's eye. He anticipated the attacker's path and positioned himself strategically. Lyra, following his lead, adjusted her movements. For the first time, she felt the subtle relief of working with someone whose mind could match hers. Humans, she realized, were not merely reactive. They could shape outcomes before events unfolded. Elias slowed at a junction, sensing a pattern in the approaching footsteps. He whispered, "They will split. Left and right. I will take the right. Cover me." Lyra nodded, impressed despite herself. "Not bad, human," she said softly. "Not bad at all." The first shadow emerged around the corner, and Elias's prediction proved accurate. His movements, precise yet fluid, allowed him to disable the threat before it could react. Lyra followed, neutralizing another with minimal effort. The cooperation was instinctive. An unspoken understanding that humans could anticipate and counter even the most dangerous situations. As the alarm continued to ring and the red lights flickered, Elias led Lyra deeper into the station, his mind already predicting the next series of moves they would face. Lyra, for the first time, felt the weight of humans' true strength, not their bodies, not their technology, but their minds. And she knew that this encounter, quiet and tense as it began, was far from over. The station around them was no longer just metal and glass. It had become a chessboard, with humans as unpredictable yet calculated players. Elias moved silently, aware of every angle, every pattern, every potential threat. Lyra followed, learning and observing, beginning to understand the depth of what humans could achieve when their intelligence met circumstance. And somewhere in the shadows, the station itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see who would make the next move, and whether anyone could truly outthink a human who had already predicted the future. The corridors of the station were bathed in a flickering red light, casting long shadows along the metal walls. The alarm echoed through the halls, a constant reminder that danger was near. Commander Elias Kane moved with calm precision, every step calculated, every glance meaningful. Lyra followed, her senses sharp, aware that this human was unlike any opponent she had faced. He did not move hastily. He moved as though he already knew what would happen next. Ahead, the sound of approaching footsteps and the faint clatter of alien equipment warned them of the intruders. Elias signaled to Lyra, pointing toward a junction where the shadows intersected with the light. "They will split here," he whispered. "One goes left, the other right. Cover the right. I will take the left." Lyra nodded, her trust in him growing despite herself. The humans' strength was not in sheer power, but in their mind. She had underestimated them, believing that alien instincts could always outmatch human reasoning. Now she saw that prediction, observation, and adaptation could be more dangerous than any weapon. The first intruder came around the corner, and Elias was ready. With a swift motion, he swept a low stun device across the alien's legs. The creature toppled without a sound, neutralized before it could raise a weapon. Lyra followed, moving with silent grace, disabling the second intruder with a precision strike that left no trace. Their teamwork was instinctive, even though it had never existed before. Elias's anticipation guided them both. Once the intruders were neutralized, Elias took a moment to scan the corridor. The station systems were compromised, alarms blaring, and some doors sealed automatically. "We need to move quickly," he said. "The intruders are just the first wave. Others will follow. The station itself is turning against us." Lyra studied him closely. "You predict everything," she said softly. "Every move, every threat. How?" Elias glanced at her, his expression calm but focused. "Observation," he said simply. "Study patterns, understand motives, anticipate reactions. Humans have survived not because we are the strongest, but because we think ahead. We adapt. That is our power." Lyra considered this, realizing that she had underestimated the human mind. The Andari prized instinct and intuition, but humans had something different, something systematic, precise, and yet flexible. They could calculate probabilities, but they could also improvise in ways no algorithm could predict. The alarm's intensity increased as more intruders approached. Elias led the way to a junction near the station's central hub. He paused, listening carefully. "They will attempt a pincer movement," he said. "2 coming from the south corridor, 3 from the maintenance shaft. We have limited options, but the station layout is in our favor if we move quickly." Lyra raised an eyebrow, impressed. "You are certain?" Elias gave a small smile. "I am prepared. Certain is rare in any situation, but preparation is everything." They moved swiftly through the shadows. Elias had memorized the station's layout to a degree most humans could not, predicting not only the intruders' likely positions, but also the potential hazards of every corridor. Every corner they turned, every vent they passed, was part of his calculation. Humans had a way of noticing patterns where others saw chaos, and he had honed that skill through years of training. The first intruder appeared from the south corridor, a large armored creature wielding a serrated weapon. Elias had already predicted the timing. He sidestepped, using the corridor wall for leverage, and delivered a precise strike that sent the creature crashing into the metal panels. Lyra moved simultaneously, targeting another intruder with her wrist device, disabling its weapon systems. They moved as one, each action a complement to the other, yet guided entirely by Elias's predictions. "Your ability is remarkable," Lyra admitted quietly. "I've never encountered anyone who can anticipate every move." Elias did not respond immediately. His focus remained on the corridor ahead. Humans did not boast. They acted. Their strength lay in their results, not their words. Yet he allowed a small nod. "Observation and adaptation are not unique to humans," he said, "but we have refined them to survive against impossible odds. That is why we endure." The battle continued. Intruders emerged from the maintenance shaft, smaller but faster, their movements unpredictable. Elias predicted their patterns by combining environmental cues with behavior analysis. Lyra began to see the logic in his methods. Every pause, every step, every hesitation was a clue, and Elias noticed them all. He seemed to dance with probability, always a step ahead, guiding them to safety, while neutralizing threats with minimal force. At one point, they reached a wide corridor leading to the station's central hub. The intruders had anticipated a direct approach and had set a trap. Energy nets hung across the corridor, ready to immobilize anyone who passed. Elias halted, scanning the setup. "They expect us to move straight through," he said. "We won't. Follow me." He led Lyra to a side access panel, hidden in plain sight. Elias quickly manipulated the controls, opening a small maintenance hatch just enough for them to slip through. Lyra marveled at the efficiency. The trap had been avoided without confrontation, simply through prediction, and careful observation. Humans, she realized, did not need to be stronger than their enemies. They only needed to be smarter. Emerging from the maintenance hatch, they found themselves in a control corridor overlooking the central hub. From here, the intruders could not easily reach them. Elias quickly assessed the situation. "We can hold this position," he said, "but we need more information. The station's systems are partially compromised. If we can access the surveillance network, we can predict the next wave of intruders." Lyra nodded, her respect for him growing. "And you can see everything," she said. "Every angle, every path." "Yes," Elias replied. "Humans excel at noticing what others miss. We see the world as patterns, as sequences of cause and effect. That is why we survive." They moved into the control corridor, Elias quickly connecting to the station's systems. His fingers danced across the interface, bypassing locks and firewalls. Lyra watched, fascinated. In minutes, Elias had not only accessed the cameras, but had mapped the movements of the intruders, predicting likely positions and probable tactics. He had turned the station itself into an ally, using the environment and technology as extensions of his mind. The intruders regrouped in the central hub, unaware that their movements had been anticipated. Elias and Lyra observed silently. He pointed out their positions and patterns, explaining in simple terms what would happen next. "They will attempt another flanking maneuver," he said. "If we act from here, we can intercept them without direct confrontation. It is a calculated risk, but it gives us the advantage." Lyra studied him, her admiration growing. Humans were not just clever, they were relentless in observation and thought. Even against superior alien abilities, they could turn the odds in their favor. It was a quiet strength, a subtle power that often went unnoticed until it was too late. The first group of intruders moved as predicted. Elias instructed Lyra to disable a control panel, which triggered a series of doors and barriers, isolating the aliens and cutting off their advance. One by one, the intruders were neutralized, caught in a web of human foresight and strategy. Lyra could not deny the effectiveness of his approach. Every move she had predicted they might make was already accounted for. "Your mind is remarkable," she whispered almost to herself. "I underestimated humans." Elias allowed himself a small, knowing smile. "We survive by adapting," he said, "by predicting, observing, and reacting. Instinct is useful, but planning and foresight are powerful tools. That is why we endure where others fail." As the last intruder fell, the corridor was silent again. The alarm continued to echo faintly, but the immediate threat was neutralized. Elias and Lyra paused to catch their breath, both aware that this encounter was far from over. The station was large, complex, and dangerous, but they now shared a fragile understanding. Even as enemies, they had seen the value in each other's skills. Lyra looked at Elias with a mixture of respect and curiosity. "You can predict almost anything," she said. "Even me. How?" Elias considered her question. "Patterns," he said simply. "Observation, understanding motives, anticipating behavior. Humans have developed this over centuries. We are small, not the strongest, but we are survivors. And survival depends on understanding, predicting, and adapting. That is why we endure." Lyra nodded slowly. She had faced many opponents, many threats, but never someone like Elias Kane. He was not the strongest, not the fastest, but he was always a step ahead. That made him dangerous and impressive. "Then the game is not over," she said, a hint of a smile on her lips. "We have only begun." Elias nodded. "No, it is only beginning. But now, you see the advantage humans hold. It is not technology alone. It is not strength alone. It is the mind, the ability to predict, adapt, and survive." They moved deeper into the station, each step careful, precise. The intruders may have been defeated, but the station itself remained unpredictable. Systems could fail, corridors could collapse, and more threats could emerge. Yet Elias did not falter. Humans thrived in uncertainty, and his mind was built for it. Every hazard, every potential enemy, every environmental challenge was already being analyzed and calculated in real time. Lyra followed silently, understanding that she was witnessing something unique. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, seen as fragile and limited. But here, in the shadows of a hostile station, Elias Kane demonstrated why humans endured, why they survived, and why they could outthink threats that seemed impossible. The red light flickered, casting shifting shadows along the walls. The station seemed alive, reacting, unpredictable. Yet Elias moved as though he controlled it, predicting hazards, guiding Lyra, neutralizing threats before they became dangers. Humans were small, but their minds were vast. And in that moment, Lyra realized that humans were not just survivors. They were masters of foresight, champions of adaptability, and capable of facing the most impossible odds with calm precision. And as they moved forward, deeper into the heart of the station, Lyra understood the truth. Facing Elias Kane was not about strength or weapons. It was about intellect, anticipation, and the quiet, unyielding power of the human mind. The station was vast, a maze of corridors, maintenance shafts, and observation decks, all connected by narrow passageways that twisted like the veins of a living creature. Red emergency lights flashed intermittently, casting long, fractured shadows along the walls. Commander Elias Kane led the way, every step measured, every breath calm. Lyra followed closely, silently observing him, aware that he was always a few steps ahead, predicting hazards she had not even noticed. Their goal was clear: reach the station's lower decks, where a control hub could be used to access the ship's systems and find a way to escape. But the corridors were crawling with hostile intruders, each group moving unpredictably, yet somehow following subtle patterns that Elias already accounted for. Humans had a gift for observing chaos and finding order in it, a skill honed by survival and necessity. As they moved through the corridors, a low rumble echoed from the station's far side. Structural alarms flashed briefly, warning of possible hull breaches. Elias signaled to Lyra, halting near a junction. "The corridor ahead is unstable," he whispered. "We will use the maintenance shafts. Follow my lead and step lightly. Watch your surroundings." Lyra nodded, impressed by the calm clarity in his voice. Unlike many aliens who relied on brute force or instinct alone, Elias anticipated dangers and planned contingencies for every scenario. It was exhausting to watch, but she felt safer under his guidance. They climbed into a narrow maintenance shaft, the metal ladder cold under their hands. The hum of the station's life support system was louder here, vibrating through the walls and into their bodies. Elias calculated every movement, every shift of weight, predicting how the shaft might respond. One misstep could trigger alarms or dislodge debris that might block their path. Halfway down the shaft, a distant sound made Lyra freeze, a subtle echo of footsteps, slow and deliberate. Elias paused as well, listening. "They're coming," he whispered. "Two ahead, one behind. Move quietly. And keep to the shadows. Timing is everything." Lyra followed without question, impressed by his ability to sense danger before it appeared. Humans had long been underestimated in the galaxy, but moments like these showed the advantage of their minds. Strength and technology were useful, but the ability to predict behavior, to see patterns others missed, was what truly set them apart. They emerged from the maintenance shaft into a dimly lit corridor near the station's lower decks. The walls were lined with conduits and panels, perfect for hiding or creating ambushes. Elias scanned the area, noticing subtle signs of intruder movement. Scuff marks on the floor, displaced panels, faint thermal traces left in the air. He had predicted their path even before they entered this space. "There," he said quietly, pointing to a side corridor. "We can take that path. They won't expect it, and it will lead us closer to the control hub." Lyra followed, moving silently beside him. She realized that she was no longer just observing. She was learning. Humans' predictive abilities were methodical, yet flexible. Elias adjusted his plans with each new piece of information, recalculating faster than she could follow. It was both fascinating and frustrating. Frustrating because she had underestimated him, and fascinating because she could see the edge humans held over other species. They moved through the corridor, careful to avoid loose panels and flickering lights. The intruders were close, yet Elias never showed panic. He predicted their positions, their speed, and their likely strategies. It was almost as if he were moving through a simulation, with every step accounted for before it happened. Suddenly, a panel beside them hissed open, and a drone-like intruder emerged, scanning the corridor with red sensors. Elias paused, analyzing its pattern. "Step back and stay still," he whispered. "Its sensors sweep in a predictable rhythm. Move only when it's blind to this section." Lyra froze, her heart racing as the red light swept past them. Elias counted silently, timing each movement with precision. When the drone's sensors passed, he moved first, Lyra following immediately behind. They slipped past unnoticed, their movements synchronized, almost like a single organism. They reached a wider corridor, one that led to the station's central control hub. Here, the danger was greater. The intruders had set automated traps, energy barriers, and patrols. Elias did not hesitate. He scanned the area, noting the patterns of the security systems, the timing of the patrols, and the potential points for intervention. "Energy barriers will cycle every 15 seconds, he whispered. "We can use the maintenance access points along the walls to bypass them. Follow my rhythm, and do not hesitate." Lyra nodded, trusting his calculations. The corridor stretched ahead, lit by intermittent red and white lights. Elias counted the seconds, noting the pulsing energy barriers. When the first barrier dropped, he slipped through a side hatch, Lyra following immediately. They moved quickly, timing each step perfectly, until they reached the control hub door. Elias assessed the lock system. "It's sophisticated but predictable," he said. "It responds to input sequences in a specific order. One mistake, and it will trigger an alarm. Watch and learn." Lyra watched as his fingers moved over the interface, manipulating it with quiet confidence. Within moments, the door clicked open. Elias stepped through, Lyra beside him. The hub was a room filled with consoles, holographic screens, and blinking lights. From here, they could control parts of the station, manipulate security systems, and create their path to escape. Elias moved quickly, overriding security protocols and setting defensive measures. "We can funnel the intruders now," he said. "Predict where they will go, then guide them into controlled areas. This gives us the advantage." Lyra observed as he worked, realizing that humans did not just react, they shaped events to their advantage. Every move, every calculation, every prediction turned chaos into opportunity. She had relied on instinct for so long, but Elias showed her that intelligence and observation could outperform raw skill. The intruders approached, unaware of the trap. Elias had calculated their route, anticipating each twist and turn. As they entered the designated area, energy barriers rose behind them, cutting off retreat. Lyra watched, impressed, as the humans' plan unfolded perfectly. The intruders were caught, disoriented, and vulnerable without a single human having fired a shot. "Remarkable," Lyra muttered. "You see everything before it happens." Elias did not look up. Not everything, but enough. Humans survive by seeing patterns, predicting behavior, and adapting. We are small, yet our minds are vast. That is our strength. They move through the control hub, accessing station maps and sensor data. Elias predicted the next moves of the remaining intruders and found a path that would allow them to escape the station entirely. Lyra followed, silently acknowledging that the human mind was a force far greater than she had anticipated. As they approached the exit to the lower docking bay, a final wave of intruders appeared. Elias calculated their positions, timing, and likely strategies within seconds. "Two ahead, one flanking from the left," he whispered. "We can bypass the center. Follow me closely." Lyra moved without hesitation. Elias led them along the walls, timing each step, each pause, each shift in weight. The intruders were fast, but they were predictable in their patterns. Humans could read sequences in ways that few other species could. The flanking intruder lunged, but Elias had already anticipated it. He sidestepped, using the aliens' momentum against them. Lyra mirrored his movements, striking with precision. The final wave was neutralized without noise, without alarms, and without chaos. The station, once a place of danger and uncertainty, was now navigable, controlled by the careful calculations of a human mind. Lyra looked at Elias with a mixture of respect, awe, and grudging admiration. "You predicted all of that," she said softly. "Every step." Elias smiled faintly. "I did not predict everything," he said, "but I predicted enough. Survival is not about perfection, it is about advantage. Seeing the patterns, understanding behavior, and adapting, that is what humans excel at." Lyra realized that she had learned something invaluable. Humans were underestimated across the galaxy, often dismissed as fragile or primitive. Yet here, in the corridors of a hostile station, Elias Kane had demonstrated the quiet power of foresight, intellect, and adaptability. Humans did not rely solely on weapons or instincts. They relied on the mind, and that made them unpredictable, dangerous, and resilient. As they moved into the lower docking bay, Elias accessed the shuttle systems. "We have limited time," he said. "The station's systems are unstable and other threats may emerge. But we have a path. Follow closely." Lyra followed, impressed by his calm confidence. Humans had a way of moving through chaos and shaping it to their advantage. Their minds were the ultimate tool, capable of turning the most desperate situations into opportunities. They reached a shuttle and quickly accessed the controls. Elias's hands moved over the interface with quiet precision, bypassing damaged systems and establishing a launch sequence. Lyra observed, noting the meticulous attention to detail, the anticipation of every potential hazard. The shuttle's engines hummed to life. Elias glanced at Lyra. "Humans endure," he said simply. "We survive because we predict, adapt, and use our minds. Strength alone does not carry us. Intelligence, foresight, and resilience do." Lyra nodded slowly. She had seen it firsthand. Humans were not the strongest species, nor the fastest, nor the most technologically advanced, but their minds gave them an edge that few could match. And in moments like these, facing danger with calm precision, humans were masters of survival. As the shuttle lifted off from the docking bay, leaving the station and its intruders behind, Lyra realized that she had witnessed something extraordinary. A single human had turned the chaos of a hostile station into a controlled environment, guiding them to safety through anticipation, prediction, and intelligence. Humans were underestimated across the galaxy, but Elias Kane had shown why that was a mistake. Survival was not just about strength, it was about the mind, and humans, small and fragile though they might appear, had minds capable of mastering even the most impossible odds. Lyra glanced at Elias, a new respect shining in her eyes. The battle had not been won through force alone, but through the quiet, unyielding power of human intellect. And she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, humans would endure, adapt, and prevail, not because of weapons, but because of the mind. The shuttle hummed steadily as it glided through the station's debris-filled orbit. Red warning lights flickered across the console, a reminder of the chaos left behind. Commander Elias Kane sat at the controls, his mind already scanning potential threats, plotting contingencies, and predicting the next challenges. Lyra sat beside him, quiet for the first time, her eyes following his movements. She had been an intruder, a skilled operative trained in stealth and combat, but now she understood that the human mind was a force unlike any other. Elias activated the shuttle's sensors, noting movement in nearby sectors of the station. The rogue alien faction that had caused the alarm was still active, attempting to regroup and pursue. He calculated trajectories, timings, and likely strategies with ease. Humans had developed a talent for prediction born from survival, refined through generations of challenges both small and vast. Every action, every reaction could be anticipated with careful observation. Lyra studied him quietly. "How do you see all of this?" she asked, genuinely curious. "Even in chaos, you anticipate every move. You always know what comes next." Elias did not answer immediately. He kept his focus on the controls, his mind mapping probabilities and outcomes. "It is not magic," he said finally. "It is observation, analysis, and adaptation. Humans have evolved to notice patterns, to understand motives, and to predict behavior. We are small, yes, but our minds are our greatest tool. Strength and numbers are temporary, but foresight is enduring." Lyra nodded slowly. She had been trained to rely on instinct, on speed, and on surprise. Yet Elias demonstrated something far greater, the quiet power of intelligence and strategy. Humans could take chaos and turn it into order, shape events before they unfolded, and survive against impossible odds. Suddenly, the shuttle shuddered. Sensors indicated another wave of intruders had activated automated drones to intercept them. Elias remained calm. "Predictable," he muttered. "They will take the most direct path. Timing their approach is key." Lyra watched as he manipulated the shuttle's controls, creating evasive maneuvers that placed them in a temporary blind spot. He anticipated the drone's movements, adjusting velocity and trajectory to avoid detection while maintaining speed toward their destination. Every adjustment was calculated, each minor risk accounted for. "They rely on technology," Elias said, almost to himself. "But technology is predictable. The mind is adaptive. That is where humans excel." Lyra realized he was teaching without words. She observed and absorbed, recognizing the value in human thought processes. Even she, trained and experienced, found herself following his lead, trusting his calculations, and seeing the power of intellect in action. The shuttle passed through the outer docking bay of the station, narrowly avoiding the first drone squadron. Elias activated a series of countermeasures, diverting their energy signatures to confuse sensors. Lyra assisted, using her own devices to reinforce the maneuvers. For the first time, she felt that humans could turn even danger into advantage through cleverness rather than brute force. "They never expected humans to anticipate this," Elias said quietly. "We survive because we see beyond the immediate, because we predict, adapt, and act." The shuttle's path led them toward the station's communications array. Here, Elias planned to access the system, sending out a signal to alert friendly forces and coordinate reinforcements. Lyra watched him work, impressed by his ability to integrate observation, prediction, and improvisation. Humans were small, but their minds were vast, and Elias demonstrated why intelligence could surpass strength in a galaxy full of formidable foes. As the shuttle docked near the array, the final wave of intruders appeared. They were faster, more aggressive, and fully aware of the humans' presence. Elias analyzed their positions instantly. 3 ahead, 2 flanking, he whispered. We will use the environment. Follow my lead. The docking bay was a maze of beams, scaffolding, and panels. Elias guided Lyra through the obstacles, predicting the intruders' paths with precision. As they moved, energy pulses from the drones lit up the space, but Elias's calculations ensured every step avoided contact. Lyra realized that humans had an instinct not for reflex alone, but for foresight, the ability to see several moves ahead, like a chess player anticipating the opponent's every strategy. Elias directed Lyra to a control panel. Override the outer barriers, he instructed. It will create a path to funnel them, giving us the advantage. Lyra quickly complied, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. As the energy barriers shifted, the intruders became trapped in a controlled zone. Elias predicted their attempts to break free, directing the shuttle and Lyra's movements to block every avenue. In moments, the intruders were neutralized without direct confrontation. Lyra looked at him, awe evident in her expression. I underestimated humans, she admitted. We rely on instinct, but you see patterns. You adapt, you anticipate. Elias nodded. Survival is not about strength. It is about prediction, adaptation, and intelligence. That is why humans endure. The shuttle moved through the docking bay, leaving the rogue faction behind. Elias accessed the communication array, sending signals to Allied forces to secure the station. Lyra assisted, her respect for him growing. Humans were not merely reactive, they were proactive, shaping outcomes before they unfolded. As they worked, Lyra realized that Elias's prediction abilities were more than tactical. They were strategic, adaptive, and profoundly human. The galaxy often dismissed humans as weak, slow, or primitive, yet here was proof that their minds were formidable, capable of navigating danger with calm precision and foresight. A final obstacle appeared, a malfunctioning energy conduit sparking dangerously near their path. Elias assessed it instantly. We can bypass it, but we must move carefully. Timing is key. Lyra followed, noting the subtle adjustments he made to their speed, their spacing, and their path. The sparks flew harmlessly over their heads as they passed, guided by a combination of intellect, prediction, and calculated risk. Humans could see potential hazards and neutralize them without panic, a skill that separated them from other species relying purely on instinct or reflex. They reached the shuttle's final launch point. Elias initiated the sequence, preparing for departure from the station's orbit. Lyra watched as he calculated the precise trajectory, factoring in gravitational pulls, debris fields, and the likelihood of pursuit. Humans, she realized, had not only survived, but thrived, because they could see beyond the immediate threat, predicting consequences and shaping events to their favor. The shuttle lifted off smoothly, leaving the station and its chaos behind. Elias monitored the sensors, ensuring no further threats followed. Lyra looked at him, understanding for the first time the quiet power humans held. They did not need brute strength or overwhelming technology. They had foresight, adaptability, and intelligence. These qualities allowed humans to endure, survive, and even prevail in impossible situations. Elias glanced at Lyra. You see now, he said. Humans are underestimated. Others assume strength and size matter most, but our minds allow us to anticipate, adapt, and control outcomes. That is why we endure. Lyra nodded slowly. She had witnessed it firsthand. The calm, calculated responses, the precise predictions, the subtle manipulation of every variable. Humans were small in number, fragile in appearance, but their minds made them extraordinary. Even against superior forces, Humans could turn chaos into opportunity. The shuttle entered a stable orbit above the planet. Elias accessed the communications network once more, ensuring that the station's systems were stabilized and that Allied forces were informed. Lyra assisted silently, observing how humans combined intellect with adaptability. The galaxy had dismissed humans, but she now understood their potential. A quiet moment passed as they drifted above the jagged surface of Calith 9. The red emergency lights of the station faded from view, leaving only the calm hum of the shuttle. Lyra broke the silence. "You predicted everything," she said. "Every move, every danger." "How?" Elias allowed a small smile. "Not everything," he said, "but enough. Humans survive not by perfection, but by observation, anticipation, and adaptation. That is our strength. The galaxy may underestimate us, but it is a mistake. Our minds give us an edge that cannot be matched by strength alone." Lyra regarded him, respect and admiration evident. "Then it seems the human advantage is not in weapons, speed, or power," she said. "It is in thought." Elias nodded. "Exactly. Intelligence, strategy, foresight. That is why humans endure, why we explore, why we survive against odds that seem impossible. We see beyond the immediate, we adapt, and we shape outcomes before they unfold." Lyra realized that she had witnessed something extraordinary. Humans were often dismissed across the galaxy, but here, in the aftermath of chaos, Elias Kane had demonstrated the quiet power of human intellect. Their survival, their victories, and their resilience came not from brute force, but from the mind, adaptive, observant, and unyielding. The shuttle began its descent toward a secure human outpost. Elias monitored every system, every potential hazard, every approach of potential threats. Lyra followed his instructions, amazed at how seamlessly he integrated prediction and action. Humans were small, but their minds were vast, capable of mastering even the most impossible challenges with precision and foresight. As the outpost came into view, Lyra spoke again. "I misjudged humans," she said softly. "You are extraordinary." Elias allowed a small smile. "We endure," he said simply. "Not because of strength or numbers, but because of our minds. That is what makes humans remarkable." The shuttle landed smoothly, and the outpost personnel rushed to secure it. Elias and Lyra stepped onto solid ground, the planet's surface firm beneath their feet. For the first time, Lyra felt a profound respect for the species she had underestimated. Humans were not only survivors, they were thinkers, strategists, and masters of prediction. Their strength lay not in weapons or instinct alone, but in the quiet, unyielding power of the human mind. Lyra turned to Elias. "I see now why humans endure," she said. "It is not just survival, it is intelligence, foresight, and adaptability. That is a gift few possess." Elias nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. "And it is a gift we use to thrive, even in the face of danger. That is why humans are respected, feared, and often underestimated. Our minds allow us to shape the future, to survive the impossible, and to prevail where others fail." Lyra extended her hand. "Then it seems I have learned something invaluable today. Humans are not merely participants in the galaxy, they are masters of it in their own way." Elias shook her hand, the gesture firm and confident. "We endure. We adapt. We think. That is all it takes." Together they watched the stars above the outpost, understanding that humans, small though they may seem, possessed a power beyond strength or technology. They had survived because of their minds, because of foresight, and because of their ability to predict, adapt, and prevail. The galaxy might underestimate them, but that was its mistake. Humans would endure, and their intelligence would ensure their survival for generations to come. And somewhere in the silence above Calith 9, The stars themselves seemed to acknowledge it, the quiet, unyielding strength of the human mind.